Hey everybody, Extra Zero here, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're doing a zeroed in discussion, but it's also going to be a reaction video. So I want to go back and look at my very first attempt at being a YouTuber all the way back in the year 2007, which doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was actually 17 years ago. So a 21-year-old me wanted to do toy reviews here on YouTube. So I want to talk about why I wanted to do it and how I got involved with it. And let's also take a look at that video. So let's start with how I got involved in all this. So I've been online for a really long time, and I've been a part of the Transformers community for a really long time as well. I started out on the Bot Talk forums all the way back 1998 when the third season of Beast Wars was on. I happened to discover the Bot Talk forums and website for my Transformers news. And from there, I got onto the forums. I had a lot of fun chatting with people. There were some folks that worked at Mainframe Entertainment that were telling us some of the things, some of the insider details, things that were going on. It was my first exposure to spoilers on the internet. I got spoiled for how Beast Machines was going to play out, how the third season of Beast Wars was going to end. And that was really a crazy time. And, you know, people didn't really like how Bot Talk was managed, and people splintered off and they formed the AllSpark. The AllSpark's still around and still popping today. Back then, it was on EasyBoard, and EasyBoard was a message board website where anybody could create a message board. And it was, think of it kind of like Discord before Discord. There weren't really voice chats there. We used to use Yahoo voice chats way back, but you know, it was a message board where you could come in, you had all kinds of different channels and sub forums. And really, it was a lot of Transformers fans getting together to talk all things Transformers, G1, Japanese series, whatever. But around 2006, 2007, we knew the movie was coming. There was a lot of speculation, a lot of discussions, and people were just really curious about the toys. So from those relationships I made on EasyBoard, I got involved and became a contributor for a site called Powit.tv. I started with Powit in about 2006, starting with contributing video game reviews and eventually starting doing some Transformers reviews. And I really admired reviewers like Pia and Bolt Matrix, who were around in the early days of YouTube. And I just loved what they were doing on YouTube. It was really innovative because you had sites like Dave Van Domelen and BWTF that are still around today, but they're text-based reviews. And, you know, you couldn't really get any inflection on what they were saying. If they, you know, sometimes if they were trying to convey they love something or really dislike something, it wouldn't always come across in text. But with video, you could show and you could tell and you could see if a figure like brought a lot of joy or made somebody upset or angry. And, you know, back then when you didn't have a lot of disposable incomes, you lived and died by those reviews because, you know, if you had a few bucks to spend on a figure, you wanted to make sure you got the most bang for your buck. So it was important to rely on those reviews to make really informed purchasing decisions when it came to those toys. So I wanted to be a part of it. You know, I had a lot of figures. I had a lot to say about them. And I just really wanted to be a part of it. I was a little more introverted then than I am now. I don't think I'm introverted at all now, really. But, you know, you might hear it in my voice. I haven't seen this video since I first put it out all those years ago. So it'll be interesting to see how I was. But, you know, I just really wanted to help the community and you know, share my thoughts, share my feelings, and maybe help people make informed purchasing decisions of their own. So, you know, this video, these two videos I have here, let's head over to my YouTube. So, you know, you can see here, I have the Leader Megatron and Deluxe Barricade. Now, I had done more for Powit, but unfortunately, not much remains on that site. I think really it's connected to Famicom Dojo, and that's why it's still up. But I think their last post was from 2020. Site's kind of really died. That's unfortunate. There was a lot of good content, and we did do a lot of good articles over on that site. So I kind of wish it still existed as a time capsule. But you know, I had 23,000 views on that and 136,000 on that Megatron. You know, back then, I didn't even consider the YouTube partnership program. I remember getting the email about it at one point and just being like, what's this all about? And declining it. You didn't need 1,000 subscribers at the time. I think it was all based on views and watch time. But, you know, it was just something that I did out of passion. I know Balt and Pia, they just did it out of passion in the early days. Now they're partners, and you know, they're getting paid for their work. And the one thing to say about YouTube back then is it was a lot harder than it is now. Nowadays, everybody has phones. The phones tend to come with editing software. It's really easy to get editing software on your PC, and editing software that's really easy and intuitive to use. Or if you know, you can get tutorials relatively easy. Not only that, but assets are easy to come by. You really didn't have that stuff back in the day. So, you know, the editing on this video is going to be a little bit rough. I remember recording it. I had to rig up a digital camera to the wall with a Home Depot shop light that got really hot just to give me some light. I don't even think it's the best lighting, but you know, I remember it being a process and keeping what I had to say under 10 minutes. You know, nowadays everybody likes long form content, but back then you had to keep it under 10. And I remember some of these reviewers having to do their videos in multiple parts. So going to be interesting to see. Without further ado, let's go ahead. Let's take a look at that video and see what 21-year-old me had to say.
Figures.
So yeah, that intro, I don't know where the song's from. I don't know who did the song, but man, that is a relic of the early 2000s, is it not? You also have to like the stock. I think Zach was editing on a Mac, so you got to appreciate that stock transition, well, scene to scene transition that the old editing software did back then. That was good stuff.
Hey Palleteers, it's your
My God, I was skinny.
host Extra Zero. I'm making my first Pallet movie review and my first entry into Pallet Toys today. As many of you know, today is the street date for the Transformers movie toys. So
yeah, so I forgot I went and got these the day they were released.
I don't know how many of you lined up at 8 o'clock this morning. I certainly didn't. I kind of went on a whim and a prayer.
So I say that, but back then distribution wasn't what it is today. Back then there were whole aisles dedicated to Transformers, and you actually not a whole aisle, but a whole side of an aisle would have nothing but wall-to-wall Transformers. You would also have an end cap, and you'd have like a center aisle display outside the toy aisle. So I think I was being a bit hyperbolic about all that.
At 12 hours later at 8 p.m. And I was fortunate enough to find my Walmart completely stocked. So I picked up the three I thought I wanted the most. I picked up Leader Prime, Barricade, and I also picked up the one I wanted the most, Blackout.
So funny, I wanted Blackout the most, but I think he ended up being my least favorite of those first initial purchases.
So first we're going to be looking at Barricade. Here he is in package. I'm not really going to bother explaining the schematics of the package because that would be pointless. I do like the new packaging. I do kind of wish that they left the Decepticon insignia in purple, but that's my only gripe.
So it's funny I say that packaging ended up becoming iconic, but even way back then, I had beef with YouTubers spending too much time on the packaging because you're going to the store, you're going to see it anyway, you know what it looks like, tell me is the toy good or not?
Of course, it's got previews on the back, his bio. You can read all that on Hasbro's website. I'm not going to waste your time. We're going to do the important point, which is the figure inside. Barricade comes in his car mode. He is a Saleen Mustang made of his police car. I really wanted Barricade because I'm also a Mustang driver.
Yep, I did have a 2005 Mustang at a V6. Love that thing. It was a money pit, but still, I had one. So it was really cool to have one that was a Transformer, because the other thing too about the movie line that made it exciting is it was one of the first times we got figures. Now, the 2001 Sideburn from Robots in Disguise, that ended up being a Dodge Viper, but for this line, all the cars were licensed vehicles. So it was kind of new and exciting.
And, you know, this is going to be a fun one to display. So, let's get to the unboxing. Okay, now I've freed Barricade from his cardboard prison. I can tell you about his car and his robot modes. So,
you can see I'm really glistening here, because I remember taking the time to unbox that figure, really get my bearings on it. I spent a couple hours, I think, just messing with it, transforming it front and back, and just making sure I would be able to do this in one take.
Barricade came packaged in his Saleen Mustang alt mode. Really well done. All the way around, it looks like a Mustang. And I gotta tell you, these details on here are insane.
Yeah, they definitely had a good paint budget for these figures, and it's really hard to see in this old footage, but that paint that they used for the police logo or the police lettering, it was this silver that picked up the light. It was like a reflective silver. It was really cool. And multiple transparent plastics on there. I just remember the vehicle modes for this whole line being really well done.
They've got the Decepticon emblem on there. Of course, the police lettering on here is a shiny silver, and it's got Barricade's little twisted to punish and enslave motto.
And that's hilarious because that was fine and acceptable back in 2007, and now Mattel's having a fit because they put that on their Hot Wheel Barricade and they're recalling it. We talked about it in the last podcast, but yeah, just funny and sad how times have changed.
On the side, numbering, police again, really well done. Even the saline mod bumper is on here. That's a really nice detail.
And I'm not saying anything about the picked out taillights because that was par for the course back then.
Plastic tires, of course, but each one spins independently, and underneath you can see little bits of his robot mode. Really cool thing Barricade does in his car mode is when you lift down the bumper guard, you can inject Frenzy. I don't know if this is a little tribute to the Power Masters or...
So yeah, this was before I even saw the movie. I knew at this point that they were Transformers in name only, meaning that they were using existing names for characters that weren't anything like their G1 counterparts. But I had no idea why Frenzy was ejecting out of Barricade.
Or not, but Frenzy transforms like so. Unfortunately, he doesn't have seats, so he won't quite sit in Barricade like a hologram drive or anything, but it's nice to have a little...
See, I'm complaining about that back then, but, you know, again, there were a lot more features on the figures back then, so I'm complaining about, like, some corners I thought they might have cut, but, you know, nowadays, you're probably watching this going, wow, that's like a feature and gimmick-rich figure. What are you talking about?
Scale accurate Frenzy. And also, while his feet don't move independently, his arms do, and his head moves a little bit back and forth. And he's got some nice detailing on here. Sculpted, not paint-wise. The only paint he has is on his eyes.
Still, gotta appreciate that they picked out the eyes and paint. I would love to have a time machine and go back and tell Young Extra the state of some of the paint on figures today. He probably wouldn't believe it.
And also, he kind of has his feet painted to blend in with Barricade's front bumper,
which is kind of a luxury today.
Barricade is deceptively easy to transform. All you do is of course...
Yeah, I remember getting that transformation down. I'm like, this is pretty easy, and yeah, that was a good thing because I did all this in one take.
Put the bumper guard back up, and you just have to pry his sides out like so, and these lift out, and these are going to form his arms. Then on the back, you just lift this whole section out and upward. It's supposed to lock into place, but unfortunately one of the drawbacks is he doesn't actually have a lock.
Yeah, typical Hasbro.
Or one that works well to lock his torso.
Typical Hasbro, hell.
And then of course his legs bend down, like so. The arms rotate down. The back end rotates down, and he doesn't have automorph technology.
Yeah, so it's funny, I'm complaining about the lack of a gimmick, but then if I remember correctly, he did kind of have something. Let's see.
This is one of the few in the line that doesn't, but it's kind of neat to see when you rotate the hood outward. The same also happens to the front bumper.
Okay, so it's not really automorph, it's just pieces together that shift together. So it's not automorph, but they would call it automorph.
And then you just kind of lift the head up, and his front doors rotate upward. And there we have Barricade in his robot mode. Barricade's gimmicks in his robot mode are kind of simple. He just has this spring in his arm. You press on a little button right here, and the arm shoots forward. It's kind of hard to do, or get it to pop out right.
So I'm saying that, but it's kind of hard to do on camera. So it's definitely hard to do on camera, especially holding it in frame. So as I mentioned, I had the camera mounted to the wall. Didn't have front-facing cameras back then, so I had to kind of shoot a little footage and kind of mark where I was going to be in frame and make sure that I had the toy in frame, which was difficult. And funny too, back then people were hands behind a camera. They didn't really show their face. So I remember getting a lot of comments from people like, wow, you're actually showing your face. And nowadays that's kind of a regular thing for a lot of creators. Like people like Thew are sitting behind a camera and showing their face. A lot of people do intros where they're actually behind the camera. But I remember getting props from people. But for me, it was just the easiest way to do things rather than having my camera staged up, because I didn't really have a light box or I didn't know how to rig one up. So I was just like, okay, hey, I'm just going to sit behind the camera and hold the figure. I wanted to do something a little bit different, but it still had its own challenges, trying to keep my head in camera, keep the toy in camera, and say everything I had scripted.
Because you have to hold on to the top of the car, and it likes to shoot downward. So that's kind of goofy. He doesn't have any missiles or anything. Get this back into place.
Yeah, fun thing I caught there, saying that he doesn't have any missiles. Back then, missiles were a standard gimmick on most figures. So this was kind of like one of the rare ones that didn't have a firing mechanism. This does have the arm. It does have frenzy. But it's kind of funny to think that here I am calling this a light-on gimmick figure, when today that would make up for a lot of gimmicks on a toy.
There we go. But nonetheless, he's kind of a cool robot. The arms do kind of look goofy, but yeah, again, all the Decepticons really do. They're not really meant to be humanoid.
Well, I think they're humanoid, but they still look very alien. I think that's what I was really trying to say.
Barricade also has some neat detailing on his hands, where his thumbs are actually independently articulated. As you see, I'm fighting with this mechanism right here, and each of his fingers are independently molded. And you can also lift this section up here to give him claws.
Yeah, having any hand articulation back in the day was a really big deal.
So, kind of a cool robot. Just as I said, my main gripe is with this torso not locking down right, and also the arm gimmick is kind of goofy, but for display purposes, he's very nice. And
I said goofy a lot, didn't I?
His card mode is very appreciated. And it's a cool looking robot, and he's well articulated. Another gripe is that his head can only move back and forth.
Well, isn't that kind of an oxymoron there to say, the figure is really articulated, but his head doesn't move? Because that they could have worked that in.
Other than that, I'd highly recommend it.
So yeah, that was my first attempt at YouTube. Boy, what that was interesting to watch. Yeah, I got 89 likes on that video. Yeah, let's go through. Let's look at some of the comments on this. Let's see what people had to say. So, okay, so let's look at the comments here. And I know someone had asked me what the car was. So yeah, I had an 05 V6. I'll put a picture up of that. I guess whoever this commenter was is no longer on YouTube, but yeah, $10,000 difference, $10,000 difference between the V6 and the GT. Yeah. Yeah, please do more reviews on the figures. Forgot about his legs. They push up and make the stance a little bit wider, so you should know it's in the booklet. Yeah, it's funny because you know, the person saying that says it's in the booklet, but I don't recall those instructions being so clear. That, and I did get it on the street date, so you know I was going into that one blind. But not much has changed. A lot of my reviewer friends like Deluxe and Patriot Prime, they've run into this to this day. So not much has changed in the 17 years where you review a figure and give your thoughts on it, and someone is in the comments section telling you missed something. But, is what it is. I know people are very passionate about this stuff and just want to be informative. So is what it is. Jasmine's probably going to do more reviews. Somebody's not there. Yeah, there you go. People ask me about the car I drove. And yeah, another one. Kind of forgot to fold the hood back together. It doesn't close all the way, but I think it looks better, and it's in the booklet. By the way, Frenzy isn't really scale accurate, at least not compared to the movie version. And again, I hadn't seen the movie when I first did the review. Let's see, when did I do that review? When did I post this? Is there a date? Oh yeah, so June 3rd, so a whole month before the movie even came out is when I had this. So that's right. Street Date was prior to the movie. They make that before? Only if you're a hardcore Megatron. Yeah. So not much has changed. I don't think I did too bad in that review, to be honest. I think I was a little nervous, and I was much more introverted back then. But all in all, I don't think 21-year-old me did too bad of a job. What do you guys think? Have any of you ever tried doing YouTube reviews? Do you do YouTube reviews now? What do you think about my first attempt at it? Let me know in the comments. Let me know if who the early YouTubers you watched were. Were you a P-Off fan? Were you a Bolt Matrix fan? Was there someone you watched that used to be on YouTube, was maybe a smaller creator, or somebody that just kind of just isn't around anymore? Let me know. I want to know who you were watching back then, and if you did do YouTube, who was your inspiration? And were you part of the Transformers fandom back in that time period? Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you guys had fun watching this. I had fun looking back at my first attempt on YouTube and seeing young me in my old bedroom, back when I was still a college kid trying to become a graphic designer. Really different time for me. Doesn't feel like that long ago, but crazy to think that it was. So anyway, I'm Extra Zero. I'll catch you all on the next one. Thanks for watching, and take care.